If you want to achieve power, influence, or mastery in this world, you have to understand that emotions are the greatest enemy you will ever face, not your competitors, not your lack of resources, not even the circumstances around you. Your emotions are the one thing that will consistently pull you back from greatness. This is where Machiavelli comes into play. His work, The Prince, laid out truths that are as relevant today as they were in Renaissance Italy. His philosophy about power, control, and survival wasn't just about ruthless manipulation. It was about understanding human nature on a deep psychological level and using that understanding to keep your emotions in check and manipulate the situation to your favor. The world is a battlefield, and the man who doesn't understand this will fall. But the man who can stay cold, stay detached, and control his emotions in the most extreme situations, he's the one who wins. Let's break this down. Machiavelli's views on emotional control were grounded in the grim reality of his time. He wasn't just some philosopher sitting in a comfortable armchair pontificating about abstract ideas. He lived through political chaos, backstabbing, betrayal, and constant threats. He witnessed firsthand the volatility of power and how quickly it could be lost if the ruler was emotionally weak. His teachings were clear. Power doesn't belong to the person with the best intentions, the biggest heart, or the most loyalty. Power belongs to the person who knows how to manage their emotions, control their response to chaos, and remain focused on the end goal, no matter what. In The Prince, Machiavelli didn't just say that a ruler should appear powerful. He said that a ruler should be powerful, and their power should be unshakable. What does that mean? It means that emotions, fear, anger, love, even compassion, should never be the driving force behind your decisions. A true leader can be ruthless when necessary, but they never let their emotions cloud their judgment. A great ruler doesn't allow his emotions to dictate his response to betrayal, to defeat, or to victory. They remain rational and calm, focused on their ultimate goal. This emotional distance is what gives them control over their kingdom, their people, and their destiny. If you're a man who wants to dominate your field, to succeed in your business, or to rise above the noise, then you need to understand that emotional control is your greatest weapon. The world will try to push your buttons. It will throw you into situations designed to make you panic, make you feel fear, frustration, or rage. And if you give in to these emotions, you lose your power. You let someone else control your actions. Think of the kings and generals of history. Machiavelli was obsessed with the study of rulers like Caesar and Alexander. They were not always the most morally righteous men. They were not always the most loved men. But they understood one core principle. In a world where others lose their heads under pressure, the ability to remain calm and controlled gives you the edge. Caesar, who came from nothing, managed to control the Roman Empire not by being loved, but by being feared and respected. He made decisions with cold logic and, when needed, with brutal force. His emotions did not guide his hand, his strategy did. When you look at these leaders, it's clear, staying cold is not a weakness, it's a strength. A man who can master his emotions can handle any situation. Machiavelli was also clear about the nature of love and fear. He argued that it is better to be feared than loved, but he didn't say this to encourage cruelty. He said this because fear is something that can be controlled, whereas love is fickle. If you can maintain fear, you control the respect and authority of those around you. If you rely on love, you're dependent on others' feelings, and that's where weakness lies. In modern terms, this means that a man should never be reliant on the approval of others, never desperate for validation or affection. You are not a slave to anyone's emotions, nor should you ever be swayed by others' opinions. Think about how often you've allowed your emotions to dictate your actions. How many times have you reacted out of anger or frustration? How many times have you let your fear of failure or your desire for comfort stop you from pursuing the greatness you know you're capable of? Every time you give in to these emotions, you're allowing yourself to be controlled. But when you master emotional control, you own your responses, you control the narrative, and you dictate the outcome of every situation. What if everything you chase is what's weakening you? What if pleasure isn't reward, but a trap? And what if desire itself was the enemy all along? Death of desire, the Stoics' path to cold clarity. This is not a guide. This is not self-help. This is war. Kill the need. Master the mind. What does this look like in practical terms? It means when the pressure is on, you don't panic. When others are caving under stress, you remain focused. When everyone else is consumed with distractions and noise, you keep your eyes on the prize. You make decisions based on strategy and logic, not your emotional reactions. Emotional control is the quiet confidence that lets you stand firm while everyone else around you crumbles. It's the ability to sit in discomfort and make the right decision, not the easy one. It's the power to remain calm in the storm and continue forward when others would have fallen back. That is the foundation of Machiavellian power. Understanding that emotions are powerful, but you must control them, not let them control you. You cannot afford to be a slave to your feelings. The game of power is won by the men who master themselves first. And once you've mastered yourself, you can manipulate any situation to your advantage. This is the hard truth, the cold truth, but it's the only truth that matters if you want to be chosen, if you want to rise above the rest. In the crucible of power, there is no room for weakness, no space for emotional volatility. To remain at the top, to hold on to power and control, you must embody coldness, the kind of emotional distance that shields you from the chaos of the world around you. It's not about being heartless. It's about being strategic, understanding that emotions are powerful tools to be used with precision, but never allowed to rule over you. Machiavelli's teachings were not born of compassion or kindness, but of the harsh truth that only those who maintain emotional control can wield true power. Machiavelli, through his examination of political leaders and generals, showed us that emotional coldness is the armor that shields a ruler from the pitfalls of indecision and reactionary behavior. Coldness is power, and it is not just about remaining unfeeling. It's about using the space between your emotions and your actions to think clearly, act decisively, and achieve the end goal. This is why, in Machiavelli's view, a prince must never let their emotions dictate the direction of their reign. When you allow your emotions to take the wheel, you lose control. And in the game of power, losing control means losing everything. Take the example of Julius Caesar. Caesar was not just a conqueror, he was a master of emotional control. He knew how to manage not only the fears and hopes of his enemies, but also the emotions of his allies and the people he ruled. He was cold when it mattered, distant when necessary, and merciless when the situation called for it. His rise to power was not built on love or admiration. It was built on calculated decisions made with an unflinching sense of emotional control. Caesar's coldness wasn't the result of being indifferent. It was a deliberate choice to keep his emotions in check to achieve his ultimate goal. In the battlefield of life, it's not about how much you care for others or how loved you are. It's about how well you can manipulate your emotions and the emotions of those around you to ensure your success. Now, let's get something straight. Emotional coldness doesn't mean being robotic. It doesn't mean having no empathy. The true cold leader knows when to show warmth and when to show ruthlessness, and the ability to switch between the two is what makes him dangerous. Machiavelli didn't advise that you should be cold all the time, but rather you should reserve warmth for strategic moments. You must learn how to wield emotions with the precision of a surgeon. The coldness Machiavelli speaks of isn't a permanent state. It's a tool, a strategy, a weapon that you bring out when the battlefield calls for it. In the face of betrayal, fear, or failure, emotional coldness is what allows you to stay composed. It's not about suppressing emotion, but about distancing yourself from impulsive reactions. In moments of crisis, when your natural instincts might be to lash out or crumble under the pressure, coldness allows you to pause, think, and take the necessary action without being influenced by fleeting feelings. This is where the true power lies. In a world that's ruled by emotional chaos, a person who remains calm and collected stands apart. When everyone else is overrun with fear, anger, or frustration, the cold leader remains clear-headed and moves with purpose. Think about this. In the midst of failure, when everyone around you is pointing fingers and casting blame, you must be able to maintain composure. When others are consumed by their emotions, a cold, calculated response will always outshine a reaction driven by panic. The emotional power of remaining cold and composed is that you're not influenced by the emotional tides around you. You control the tide. This coldness also establishes boundaries. The leader who is too emotionally open becomes vulnerable to manipulation. You're allowing others to see your weakness, your human side, and in doing so, you invite others to exploit those weaknesses. On the other hand, the leader who keeps his emotions guarded becomes an enigma, a figure to be respected, feared, and admired. This coldness creates a psychological barrier, one that keeps people at a distance and prevents them from taking advantage of you. Furthermore, coldness is not about hiding your emotions, it's about not letting them run the show. Emotions are part of being human, they are real, and they shape our decisions. But for the leader who wants to succeed, it's critical to understand that emotions should never dictate the outcome of an interaction or decision. You have to acknowledge them, control them, and then let logic and strategy guide you. In practice, emotional coldness can be developed over time. It starts with self-awareness. You must first understand your triggers. What causes you to lose your cool? What emotions sway your decisions? Once you recognize your emotional weaknesses, you can begin to control them. This takes discipline, and more importantly, it requires a shift in how you view power. You must see power not as a force that is external, but as something that begins within, inside you, in your ability to stay centered, calm, and strategic, regardless of the external noise. Machiavelli understood this concept better than anyone. He wasn't simply advocating for a lack of emotion, he was advocating for emotional intelligence. The leader who can understand when to display warmth and when to show coldness is the one who can manipulate power to their advantage. That's the kind of leader who wins. Emotional coldness isn't about rejecting emotion. It's about controlling it, using it strategically, and always staying a step ahead of the game. As we move through life, we'll face countless situations that will test our emotional strength. But remember this, in the game of power, the man who can keep his emotions at bay is the one who will always stay chosen. Coldness is the weapon that will ensure you rise above the noise and seize the power that others can only dream of. This is why emotional resilience is also about timing. Machiavelli didn't just say to be cold in every situation. He said to understand when to show warmth and when to show ruthlessness. A person who is always cold is often seen as distant or unapproachable. But the leader who can switch between coldness and warmth knows how to build relationships, gain trust, and, when necessary, use emotional detachment to assert dominance. In life and business, you need to know when to engage with people emotionally and when to remain aloof, keeping your emotions as tools to be wielded strategically. The key to mastering Machiavellian emotional power is understanding that you are in control of your reactions. No one can force you to feel a certain way unless you allow them to. People will try to provoke you, push your buttons, test your patience. But the true power lies in your ability to remain unfazed, to act as the calm in the storm. The world will always be chaotic. There will always be distractions, obstacles, and challenges. But your ability to stay centered will ensure that you always stay chosen. To build emotional coldness, you have to practice. One way to start is by exposing yourself to situations that test your emotional control. Push yourself out of your comfort zone. When the pressure is on, resist the urge to act out of instinct or emotion. Pause, breathe, and take the time to assess the situation logically. Over time, this practice will become second nature. You'll develop a level of emotional intelligence that allows you to rise above the noise and react with calculated precision, not impulsiveness. As we wrap this up, I want you to take a moment and reflect on what it takes to embody this cold, emotional mastery. You are a warrior in this world, and you must act like one. You must understand that emotional power is one of the most valuable tools you have. Whether in business, relationships, or in your personal life, the ability to remain cold, to take control of your emotions, and to stay focused on your goals is what will elevate you. To my crusaders, I want you to understand this. I'm here for you. I know the path isn't easy. I know it's hard. But we are in this together. I've been through the struggle. I've felt the weight of the world trying to crush me. But I've learned the art of staying cold, of not letting anything or anyone control my emotions. And I'm telling you, if you can master this, you will rise above the rest. We're the ones who will stand tall when everyone else crumbles under the pressure. And I'll be right here with you every step of the way as you build your power, stay cold, and ultimately, stay chosen. Thus remember, we are Indeceptor. Becoming Indeceptor is the code they never wanted you to learn. A psychological war map for men, forbidden teachings fused with modern strategy for influence, dominance, and self-mastery. If you want peace, prepare for war. Welcome to the Indeceptor Archive, where the undeceived rise. No ads, no distractions, just pure, uninterrupted power. As a crusader of the archive, you gain infinite access to every video, every truth, every strategy, without censorship, delay, or interruption. New drops daily, delivered to you before the world sees them. Raw, unfiltered, elite. Indeceptions.com